My top 5 favorite books of all time. Welcome back to Backyard Conversations. This episode today is going to be a little different than we usually do. You guys know we're usually going through my I Love Me binder, talking about stories from my time in the SEAL teams, but we're going to talk about something today on Backyard Conversations that I think is really important, at least in my life, and has been important to me in terms of just development and just being a well-rounded human, and that is reading. I'm going to talk to you guys about my top 5 favorite books of all time. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, you've heard me say before, if you don't read, you're either lazy or dumb, or lazy and dumb at the same time. There was a long time that I considered myself pretty dumb because I didn't read. I've grown a lot since I started making this a part of my life. I read every day, twice a day, once in the morning, and then once at night. It actually helps me get to sleep. So let's dig into these top 5 books. I know, guys, it's hard to find a good book to read. That is a big thing that prevents a lot of us from actually spending time. But these I would recommend to anybody and everybody. So let's start. I'll start with this one right here on top. This book right here is a book called Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This is a masterpiece that digs into what Christians actually believe. If you don't know anything about C.S. Lewis, he is just a magnificent writer. He's written, I don't know how many books. He was friends with J.R. Tolkien, the guy that wrote Lord of the Rings. He's just an amazing, amazing author. This book particular, it goes deep into some subjects in terms of faith and spirituality. Again, talking about what Christians actually believe. And he really gets to the root of some tough topics in this book. This is one that you can come back to year after year and always get something from it. I've probably read this 4 or 5 times at a minimum. I mean, the first chapter talks about what is right and wrong and a clue to the meaning of the universe. How could you not want to read C.S. Lewis's words on that? Some of the biggest questions that some of the biggest questions that we should ask ourselves in this life is, what are we doing here? How did we get here? And where are we going when we leave here? I think this book here from C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, gets at those big 3 questions in many ways. So highly, highly recommend that. And really, for that matter, any book from C.S. Lewis, as you can see, the next one is from him too. This is a book called The Screwtape Letters. This is a conversation between 2 demons, all right? I don't know how in the world C.S. Lewis wrote this book. It is done so well. Again, between a demon named Wormwood and, gosh, I forget. I think the other one's name is Screwtape, all right? And basically, it's their conversation and talking about how they influence what this book calls their patience, all right? We, as human beings living on the earth, are their patients, all right? And they simply talk about how they manipulate and influence our lives, our thoughts, our emotions, our relationships, all of those things. And I think if you read the Screwtape Letters, it will resonate with you as you reflect upon the conversations between these 2 demons and some of the thoughts that you may have had in your head that you felt like were influencing you or your mood or your emotions in the past. It's just great insight and really a unique style of writing. Really a unique style of writing. So I would highly, highly recommend the Screwtape Letters. It's a super easy read. Easy little small book. You can read this in a couple days. And yeah, it's good to go. Once you read it, you kind of get the gist of it. And you can move on. It's not quite like Mere Christianity where you come back to it year after year. But anyways, here is the number 3. This is The Pilgrims Progress by John Bunyan. This is high on my list. It's in the top 5. One is this was the first book that I read when I decided to follow Christ, all right? Other than the Bible, this is the first book that I read. This was written in the 17th century, and it's basically an allegory of a character's life as he goes through life, and it compares it to spiritual difficulties, places that you come to in your faith, and one's called the Valley of Despair, one's called Vanity Fair, and just all these different things, all these different places that you come to in your journey with Christ, in your journey in faith, are pretty much all portrayed in this book by John Bunyan, The Pilgrims Progress. Another thing that I love about Pilgrims Progress is it's written in the Old English, so it's very similar writing style to the King James Version Bible. Reading this book, and it's a story book, right? So it's fun to read. Reading this book and reading in that language actually helped me go back then and read my Bible and understand the language better and be able to read it in a more flowing way, right? To be able to read it and comprehend it much easier. So that's really, really cool. I highly recommend The Pilgrim's Progress. It's been a few years since I've read this again. I'm probably going to go back to it soon. It is just a classic masterpiece that has withstood the test of time. Promise you, you're going to love this book right here. Number 4, moving away from spiritual content. If you guys haven't noticed, most of my reading is about spiritual matters. I think that's the most important matter that we should wrestle with, the most important questions that we should wrestle with. But if I'm not reading about spiritual matters, I'm reading about history. And so that's why this is number 4. This is called Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. What this book really did for me was it made me understand what the men in the Continental Army went through in order to establish this nation, the United States of America, during the Revolutionary War. It's amazing when you read through this, the sacrifices that group of men, that generation made in order for us to have what we have today. The other really cool thing about this book right here, Washington, A Life, is it tells us or gives us insight into Washington himself, his leadership style, the way he interacted with people, his personality, even his politics, right? And he was, whether you like Washington or not, he was a magnificent man and someone that we can all take lessons from, both in leadership and how to live our life and how to interact with others. There's no doubt about it. He was very, very special. So Washington, A Life, I highly recommend this in terms of history, especially for you guys that maybe need to brush up on your United States history. It's really, really important to read about history because, as you guys know, history continues to repeat itself. So if you want to know what's coming, you should generally understand what happened in the past, and that's going to help you tremendously as we progress forward in these crazy times that we're living in. So check it out. It's a big one, but it is worth it, man. Washington was an amazing dude. All right, number 5, but not in that order, of course. You can see I got this little book right here. If you guys don't know, this is the Bible. And the Bible is actually a compilation of many different books. So I have to just choose one out of here. If I had to choose one, what's the book in the Bible that I've read the most? It's probably the book of Matthew. All right? It's the first in the 4 Gospels that talk about Jesus Christ and his life and his teachings and all that good stuff. I really like Matthew's writing style. I read it easily, I comprehend it easily, and that's why I just go back to it time and time again. There's no telling how many times I've read the book of Matthew. Like I told you guys before, I like reading my Bible in the King James Version. I think it's a beautiful, eloquent language. I think that it's just fun to read. It challenges me. It forces me to pay attention to what I'm reading and not just reading a more modern version. I would catch myself just kind of skimming through or skimming over it as I would read a novel or some other book, but the King James Version slows me down, and I just think it's an awesome, awesome language or style of language to read in. So the Holy Bible, you guys know this book is unique. It's unique because this little book right here, I've been studying this book for a little over 10 years now. Every single day I've been studying this book, and every single day it gives me something new. That's why they call it the living word, right? It speaks to you in a very unique way, unlike any other document or writing that has ever been produced in human history. And that's probably why it is the #1 seller of all time, the Holy Bible. You can't dispute it. Even historically, it's got a lot of history in it. And if you don't follow Christ, I still think you should look into the words of the Bible because they are going to teach you about the human heart. They're going to teach you about the history of mankind, and it's going to challenge you on many, many different levels. So the Bible never gets old, man. Always have it with me. This is, although it was number 5 on this video, this is my #1, all right? So I want to challenge you guys to pick up a book, man, and read. We got a lot of ways to consume content these days. We've got YouTube, we've got podcasts, we've got all these audio books. In my opinion, nothing replaces good old-fashioned picking up a book and reading it. It is going to help you grow as a human, as a leader, and just as a well-rounded person. All right? So, hope you guys enjoyed this backyard conversation. Get out, buy one of these 5 books. If you do, drop a comment and let me know what you thought about it. Nuff said. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got something out of this content, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop us a comment. We always love to hear from you. If you want more, come join us at a live training event, either the basic course or the proving ground. Go to 3of7project.com to submit your application. Nuff said.